Number 10. The Earth's core. I know we all want to get into some creepy spooky stuff, but let's start with a little mini science lesson. The Earth's crust is the second highest layer of the Earth, only being underneath the sea level. Then we have the mantle and the cores, which are incredibly hot, and we really can't explore because, well, our machinery would likely just melt. The core is the very center of the Earth and the hottest, around 5,200 degrees Celsius, and here's where it gets weird. Scientists discovered that the core of the Earth is actually asymmetrical. They discovered that seismic waves caused by earthquakes travel faster through the core going north and south than they do going east and west. This causes the iron that solidifies on the sides of the core to grow more on one side and leaving the core lopsided. Scientists actually have no idea why this is happening, though I think it's because there's an ancient colony of dinosaurs living down there, or something. I think I saw a documentary on it once.
Next up at number 9, a piece of the moon. As fate would have it, a piece of the moon made its way into the desert of Morocco, and in 2014 it was discovered and sold privately to a collector. The moon chunk weighed about 6 pounds and was extremely rare, as very few pieces of lunar material have been known to crash land onto the planet. Now, as cool as this seems, scientists have discovered that moon dust can cause huge health risks, and long-term exposure is highly toxic and has the potential to even cause death. So whoever has this piece of moon rock better have it sealed tight, because it could be the end of them.
Number 8. The BETZ Mystery Sphere. The so-called BETZ Mystery Sphere was found in the 70s and is exactly as its name suggests, a sphere, being completely smooth except for a triangular symbol. When they found it, they thought it was space junk and they picked it up and took it home. But then they noticed it had some strange properties, like seeming to hum and resonate with certain noises like guitar playing. They also realized that when rolled, it would change directions on its own and often return back to where it had started. When this was discovered, the BETZ family were swarmed by media wanting to get a look at the mystery sphere. Many people witnessing the sphere's strange activities and the way it would completely change directions in no time at all with no outside influence. To this day, it's not known what the BETZ mystery sphere actually was. It's still a mystery, some people citing it as some sort of alien orb. Unfortunately, we probably never will get a true answer as the current whereabouts of the sphere are unknown. Number 7. Prosthetics. Archaeologists are no strangers to digging up weird bodies and burial sites, but this one seemed especially strange. In the north of Italy, they found a body, among others, that seemed to come from the 6th to 8th century. Obviously, this alone isn't weird, they find bodies all the time. What was weird is that the man had an amputated hand, and he had a knife as his prosthetic. Within the grave, they also found the skeleton of a headless horse and several greyhound dogs. Upon examining the man, they found that his body was an incredible story of survival for a person who had received an amputation before proper medical practices and antibiotics existed. They knew that the knife was a prosthetic and not just something he'd been buried with because the arm and knife both showed the signs of having been attached for a long time. Personally, I think this guy was probably the inspiration for Merle Dixon on The Walking Dead. Number 6. The Black Sarcophagus. Around 4 years ago, a meme went around the internet about drinking the sarcophagus juice. So where did that come from? The juice came from the Black Sarcophagus. In summer of 2018, they found a massive black granite sarcophagus buried deep in Egypt, untouched for around 2,000 years. Many people believed that the sarcophagus would contain some deadly curse and that we should not open it. But they did open it and they found, well, juice. It contained 3 skeletons and a red-brown sewage-like liquid, apparently giving off a completely unbearable stench. It was so bad that when they first opened it only 2 inches, everyone vacated the premises. So did the tomb have a curse in it? Well, one of the archaeologists said the following: "We've opened it and thank God the world has not fallen into darkness." Well, I think he may have said that a bit prematurely. With the state of the world today, we may want to go back and consider that maybe it was the sarcophagus juice that cursed us. Number 5. Williams Enigmalith. In the late 1990s, an electrical engineer called John J. Williams was on a hike when he saw a strange rock sticking out of the ground. How it would have looked different from any other rock on a hike, I'm not sure, but he proceeded to dig it up, and he found that it was in fact very strange. That's because it appeared to have a metal piece attached to it, resembling the male end of an electrical plug. It became known as the Williams Enigmalith. Enigmalith being a combination of the words enigma and monolith. He consulted both an engineer and a geologist to take a look at the rock, and they revealed that the electrical component within the granite showed no sign of ever having been glued or welded. The rock itself looking to be around 100,000 years old. Williams has apparently encouraged scientists to examine the rock, but none have ever stepped up to do so. Maybe because they don't want us to know the truth about it. Number 4. Alien skulls. If you've seen Indiana Jones, then you're probably familiar with the concept of the crystal skulls. Skulls with elongated heads that are going to be used to somehow conquer the world or something. Well, it turns out that these skulls aren't just a work of fiction, and if you sat around watching History Channel with your dad as a kid, then you may have seen the special they did about the search for the real crystal skulls. Well, in a Mexican graveyard, researchers found a total of 25 skulls, 13 of them having these long-headed malformations. When you look at pictures of them, they definitely look like they must be something alien, coming from another planet. Researchers, however, believe that this comes from a cultural practice of stretching the skull, as it was maybe a sign of higher social status. Personally, I'm gonna keep believing it was aliens. So far, no real confirmed crystal skulls have actually been found, but maybe someday they will. Number 3. Antikythera mechanism. In the early 1900s, this 2,000-year-old artifact was found off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera. It is shaped like a circular gear with other mechanisms seeming to attach to it. Scientists have been trying for decades to try and figure out what this is and what it could have possibly been used for around 2,000 years ago, some describing it to be the first ever computer. While it may not look like a work of art to you, a professor at Cardiff University said it was extraordinary, describing how everything was perfect and seemed to be done very carefully, even going so far as to compare it to the Mona Lisa. Upon close study, it seems to track the solar system, like the time of day as well as even eclipses. It's the most complex piece of machinery from its era, and nothing similar came around for a very long time. Some people bringing into question the idea that humans had some sort of outside influence to help build this computer. Number 2. The Voynich manuscript. If you're a fan of rare books, then this one is for you. The Voynich manuscript was rediscovered in the early 1900s, though it had previously circulated through the hands of emperors and rulers. To this day, we don't actually know what the book says, as it is written in an indecipherable language and its illustrations are just as confusing. The pictures include things like otherworldly plants, non-existent constellations, and naked women swimming through strange tubes and green baths. Almost every page includes these fantastical drawings and strange texts about things that seem like they must come from another world. The book was written back in the 15th to 16th century, and perhaps the person who wrote it had a window to another planet, or perhaps a parallel universe. Copies of the manuscript are now available to purchase, along with historical and scientific perspectives on the book, if you're interested in taking a look for yourself. Number 1. Vampire skeletons. Vampire imagery and stories have been around for centuries, even spanning all the way back to the Bible if you saw my other video on that. But as it stands, we don't really have any true evidence or proof of the existence of vampires, unless you think the Twilight series was a documentary. In Poland, one team excavated a group of bodies that seemed to date back to the 14th century. Again, not super weird, their job is basically finding bodies. But what was different about these ones is that they appear to have been taken apart after their death, not by grave robbers or site disturbers, but immediately after they had died and were being buried. They had their heads removed and had been punctured through the spine, their heads being held under large stones. Researchers believe that this is due to the fear of vampires, and the people burying them believed them to be blood-sucking monsters and buried them this way to prevent them from ever rising up again. Well, I guess it worked.
In our number 10 spot, we have the Ring of Sylvanus. Anyone a fan of The Lord of the Rings? I'm a mega fan, so if you are, reach out to me and let's be friends. But anyways, you may not know this, but the ring exists. Yep, it's real. Allegedly, J.R.R. Tolkien was inspired by a ring called the Vain Ring, or the Ring of Sylvanus, that was said to be cursed. It was a gold ring dating to the 4th century AD England, and it was the property of a man named Sylvanus in 1785. It was apparently stolen, and Sylvanus put a curse on it. Eventually, it became the property of the Shute family, and their property eventually became a National Trust property, and the ring is on display there. In 1929, a man named Sir Mortimer Wheeler discovered the curse upon it and discussed the details of the curse, such as the god invoked, with a very famous man by the name of J.R.R. Tolkien, thus birthed the story about the one powerful ring. Man, if there was one person dead that I could meet, it would be him. He created his own language, folks. I wish I could pick his brain on his thoughts about life. Anyways, this object is locked away in a display case, so we should be good. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can watch more content like this.
Number 9. The Devil's Claw. In the 1980s, a group of explorers took to New Zealand to look underneath the mountain. What they found was probably something that they never would have expected. Eventually, they came upon pieces of bones attached to flesh attached to what looked like a dinosaur's claw. It had 3 long fingers, each with their own long pointed claw forming an entire hand. But like most dinosaur bones, this one didn't look like it had been dead for centuries, instead looking like it had only died very recently. The whole team was now stuck in this deep dark cave under a mountain, surrounded by remains of what appeared to be some sort of modern dinosaur or monster. Some people that have seen the hand say that it reminds them of the devil, and looks like it is his hand that somehow appeared in the ground of New Zealand. Others believing it to come from an ancient bird that used to roam there.
In our number 8 spot, we have the HEXHAM heads. The HEXHAM heads were a pair of small stone heads about 6 centimeters high, found in 1971 in a British town called Hexham by 2 boys by the name of Colin and Leslie Robson. They were digging in a garden when they stumbled across them, and they brought them inside. Right away, paranormal phenomena began to happen in their house. One boy's hair was pulled at night, the heads would mysteriously be in new places, bottles were being thrown across the room, and their mother saw a man that was seemingly half man, half goat leaving the house. When the artifacts were given to a Celtic artifact expert, she and many others noticed a half man, half wolf leave the house or move about the house on many occasions. The woman also reported the feeling of a cold presence and her office door opening with no wind, and the cause remained unknown. The heads got passed around a lot until suddenly they vanished, and their whereabouts still remain unknown. Dun dun dun. In our number 7 spot, we have the Crying Boy. The Crying Boy is a fascinating phenomenon. This is a mass-produced print of a painting by an Italian painter by the name of Giovanni Bergolin, and the painting is literally of a boy crying. This painting was widely distributed in the 50s, but in the 80s, a theory around the painting began to arise, and people started to think that the painting was cursed. On September the 5th, 1985, a British newspaper reported that a firefighter had stated that undamaged copies of the painting were being found frequently at sites of burned houses. Of course, people began to believe that it was the paintings that were behind it because they would somehow come out untouched. It was later learned that the paintings did have varnish on them that made them fire retardant. However, the boy in the paintings was later discovered, a man named Don Bonillo, and apparently he is tied to several fires, including the painter's studio. Yikes, okay, well this is scary. I hope all of these paintings were somehow disposed of. I'm assuming not by fire, but in some way, but if not, then they need to be locked away in a fireproof cabinet of some sort. In our number 6 spot, we have the BASANO vase. The BASANO vase is a vase that needs to be locked away, and we need to also throw away the key because it is terrifying. I know, it seems like an object that is just not threatening at all. I mean, come on. It's a vase. Something you put beautiful flowers in. Anyways, the vase is believed to be from the 15th century in Napoli, Italy. Apparently anyone that was ever the owner of it has died. I mean, that is inevitable, right? We're all mortal humans. No, they died within a few months of having it. The original owner apparently died with it in her arms. The vase was passed between a bunch of hands in the 80s before it disappeared, and no one is quite sure where it is located at this moment. In our number 5 spot, we have the Bronze Lady. Okay, so this next one can't necessarily be locked up because it's a giant bronze statue, but I'm putting it on this list so y'all can have caution if you ever go near it. Okay, this statue is located in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Yes, the famous cemetery. You may be going there to see ghosts, but apparently the Bronze Lady is who you should be watching out for. She allegedly wanders the cemetery grounds at night, terrifying anyone who may have entered the grounds. They say that you can hear her weeping if you get close to her, and if you sit on her lap, she'll cry tears of blood. They say if you insult her and hit her in the face, you will be cursed for life. Who the heck is doing that and why? Apparently many a visitor have ran from the cemetery after an encounter with her. Damn. In our number 4 spot, we have the Robert doll. Well, right off the bat, I want to lock this one up because of its name. This sounds like the creepiest doll ever. Not that there's anything wrong with the name Robert. I even have a cousin named Robert. It's just Robert and doll together. Sounds creepy. I don't know. Anyways, looking at this doll, I have to say that the creepiness of the name totally matches it. This must be top 5 creepiest dolls ever, but I wouldn't know. I don't watch a lot of doll movies, and it's been a long time since I've played with them. I do miss my Barbie days, not gonna lie. The doll was made in Germany and purchased in 1904 and given to a boy named Robert Otto. The legend is that the doll has supernatural powers. After Otto passed away and the doll was passed around, people said that the doll caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and people that visited the museum that it was eventually put in would supposedly experience post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert, whatever that means. I bet you they were insulting Robert like the Bronze Lady statue. Who are all these disrespectful animals? In our number 3 spot, we have the Hope Diamond. This is a very, very beautiful diamond that unfortunately is cursed. So much so that no one should own it. I just realized something. If you were someone that owned such a crazy expensive diamond, would you not do whatever you could to protect it and make sure it was not stolen, such as create a rumor around it possibly being cursed so no one would try to steal it? I mean, I probably would. I wonder if perhaps that's how this started. Anyways, allegedly the Hope Diamond is cursed and has brought about a lot of death in its time. It was extracted in the 17th century in India. Owners of the Hope Diamond were either killed or experienced extreme misfortune. So after a while, it just gained a poor reputation. It's most likely cursed. In our number 2 spot, we have the Cursed Ring. This is a ring that needs to be locked up in a vault pronto because it is absolutely cursed. It was once called the Destiny Ring by a shopkeeper who did not want to sell it, but apparently actor Rudolph Valentino had to have it. It was the 1920s, and after buying this ring, a series of unfortunate events happened to him before he ended up passing away. A series of unfortunate events actually happened to all who obtained the ring for many years until the ring was bought in an auction in 2017, and there has been no word as to whether the owner of it is still okay. Why oh why was this ring not thrown into a vault? I will never understand people. In our number 1 spot, we have the BALEROY Chair of Death. You may be surprised to hear that this is not the only chair that supposedly brings about death, but the other chair is so widely talked about that I thought I would talk about this one on this list. This chair, the BALEROY chair, is a chair that's from the BALEROY mansion that is believed to be very haunted. It's a 200-year-old blue chair that sits in the drawing room called the Blue Room. The chair apparently was once owned by Napoleon, and it was made in the 18th century by a person that practices sorcery. So how is this chair bad, you may ask? Well, the legend around this chair is quite fascinating. Allegedly, a red mist floats around the chair, and people say that the mist is a spirit named Amelia. This spirit allegedly sucks the breath out of anyone that sits in the chair, sucking out their life force, and they pass away a few days later. This literally sounds like a part of the plot of Hocus Pocus. I bet you they got their inspiration for the movie from this.
Starting us off at number 10, the Khaden meteorite. While it may not have been the biggest meteorite to crash into the Earth, it certainly raised many questions once it was here. On December 30th, 1980, what looked like a fireball was seen in the sky hurling its way towards the Soviet military base. Now, upon impact, they discovered a surprisingly small stone weighing only about 4 pounds, but it was what was inside the stone that caused a commotion. Inside the meteorite was a wide range of incredibly rare and unique minerals, many of which are not found in nature, causing quite a bit of confusion and debate around the stone's origins. Some scientists believe it originated from the Martian moon of Phobos, but no one really knows for certain. While there have been several meteorites from Mars to land on Earth, if suspicions are true, the Kaden would be the first Martian moon rock to be found on Earth. And who knows what that could mean.
In our number 9 spot, we have the unlucky mummy. The unlucky mummy is an artifact that people legit believed started World War I. Oh, and the object was rumored to have sunk the Titanic. That's a very, very unlucky mummy. The unlucky mummy is an ancient Egyptian artifact that's either a painted wooden mummy board or an inner coffin lid that's now located in a British museum. It was originally found in Thebes and can be dated by its shape and style to around 950 to 900 BC. A British journalist, obsessed with the fact that he thought it had magical powers, analyzed it for some time, and after 3 years, at only age 36, he mysteriously passed away. People believed that the unlucky mummy was the reason. Wow, it's so wild to think about how different people's thoughts were back then compared to how people think now. Did people back then have crazy imaginations, or are we too unimaginative and logical now that we miss the magic? Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below.
Next up at number 8, Tomanawos. To understand the craziness of this meteorite, we have to rewind a few billion years. Well, 4.5 billion years to be exact. Meteorites are usually made of iron and nickel. These iron and nickel atoms were formed inside stars that eventually exploded, sending the elements rocketing across the nebula. Over time, the elements were forced together to create what we call protoplanets, which were the first planet-like orbs of the solar system. Now, 4.5 billion years ago, Tomanawos was at the core of one of these protoplanets, but at some point in time likely collided with another protoplanet, sending huge chunks back into space. Then, 17,000 years ago, it crashed down into the Earth and landed on an ice cap in Canada. It wasn't discovered until thousands of years later, and by that time it had made quite the journey down to Oregon. The 15-ton rock caused quite a stir and even a lawsuit when in 1902 a man tried to steal it from the indigenous people and charge others to see the strange and mysterious space rock. But the joke was on him, as the Oregon Iron and Steel Company actually owned the land where he'd found the meteorite and sued for its return. Whatever it was, there was something about this meteorite that drew people in. And who knows, maybe it really was cursed. Next up at number 7, a strange black object. In July of this year, Australian farmer Mike Miners was doing his usual morning survey of his farm when all of a sudden he spotted something that caught his eye. There in the distant part of the grasslands was a large jet black object measuring roughly 9 feet and sticking straight up out of the ground. Unsure of what was going on, he took a closer look at the object and eventually decided to call the Civil Aviation Safety Authority to see if they could help. Once he was on the phone with them, they quickly urged him to call NASA directly. Eventually, it was discovered to be a piece of space junk, likely from the SpaceX Dragon capsule, but many conspiracy theorists didn't seem to buy this answer, believing it to be some kind of remnant from a UFO. And to tell you the truth, I have no idea if those conspiracy theorists are losing their minds or if they are onto something, but anything that is falling from outer space will always freak me out. Coming in at number 6, the microscopic diamond. There are many things people can expect to find falling from the sky, but tiny microscopic space diamonds would not be at the top of my list. Back in 1969, an unexpected meteorite came crashing down into Mexico, which led to one of the biggest manhunts trying to find all the scattered fragments. fragments. One of the strange finds were small diamond fragments containing, now stay with me here, isotopic signatures of materials formed prior to the existence of our solar system. Which, listen, I'm not really blessed with much of a science brain, but essentially it's really frickin' crazy what they found. The origins of the diamond is up for debate. There are two theories about how they came to be. The first is the formation inside a giant star that long ago exploded in a supernova, and the second is from an asteroid impact in space. But either way, it's an incredibly strange find that raised more questions upon its discovery than it answered. Next up at number 5, a molten object. Maybe it was aliens, or maybe it's some cursed artifact from outer space, but either way, no one had any clue what they'd found. Back in 2016, an inexplicable molten object fell from the sky in Siberia and was actually caught on film. Two YouTubers said they received the footage from a witnessing Russian man and wasted no time posting the video for all to see. Whatever it was covered in green flames, an unrecognizable white foamy substance, and grabbed the attention of local firemen who can be seen attempting to put out the giant and strange green flames. Many online viewers were quick to try and figure out what exactly they were witnessing, and some said it was probably a satellite that fell onto the earth, but some swear they saw a UFO hovering over Turkey just 3 days prior and believe the object to have been the crashed extraterrestrial ship. Maybe the aliens were trying to send us a message? Let's just hope it was a crashed satellite. Coming in at number 4, fireballs. There are few things that make us worry about the end of days more than giant fire orbs raining down from the sky and terrorizing our planet. Well, in September of 2019, it seemed like just that was happening in Chile when huge and mysterious flaming objects lit up the sky, cascading over the largest island in Chile, horrifying the locals. The fireballs plummeted to the earth and caused 7 bushfires across the island, though luckily no one was injured. Initially, most assumed it was meteorites crashing down, but after a few days inspecting the site, no traces were found at any of the 7 locations. Officials were confused by the findings, as the only other logical explanation would be space debris, but that as well seemed to have been ruled out by many. So if it wasn't a meteorite and it wasn't a rogue piece of space debris, what could have fallen from the sky? Could it have anything to do with an unknown space civilization? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Coming in at number 3, metal shreds. Long before Chile saw the flaming balls of fire crashing down, Argentina was met with an equally terrifying phenomenon. Back in 1991, out of nowhere, giant shards of flaming metal appeared glowing in the sky. The ominous showers appeared to be darting down towards the planet, terrifying the locals. This metallic rain turned out to be fragments from a Russian space station named the Salyut 7, which to this day is still considered to be one of the largest human-made objects to re-enter the atmosphere. Now, of course, engineers made many attempts to guide the fragments toward the Atlantic Ocean, but as the station was in a low orbit to the planet, they were not really able to properly redirect anything. So soon the 88,000 pounds of metal were crashing down to the Earth, and although no one was injured, it certainly terrorized all who witnessed it. Coming in at number 2, Vladimir Komarov. Infamously known as the man who fell from space, Vladimir was a famous Russian astronaut, or cosmonaut as they were called during the Cold War space race. Back in 1967, he embarked on a crazy mission that, although he was completely trained to complete, was ultimately rushed. Allegedly, the spacecraft had a multitude of structural issues, and despite engineers warning the Soviet officials that the craft was not ready, they continued with the mission as planned. Vladimir took off and made his way up into the eternity of space, and even executed 16 orbits around the Earth. But something went awry with his mission, so he was instructed to make his way back down to Earth. However, things went south upon trying to re-enter the atmosphere when his parachute would not engage, and Vladimir plummeted back towards the Earth, crashing in a horrific explosion. Rumor has it that while he was plummeting to his fate, he was screaming at the Soviets for forcing him to do this mission. And while he may not have been something that originated from space, it was certainly cursed from the very beginning of its journey. And last up in our number 1 spot, the Roswell incident. Back Back in 1947, a huge metallic object crashed down on the Earth, causing a major uproar for conspiracy theorists across the globe. Now, normally I'm not one to jump on the conspiracy wagon, but I don't know how anyone can look me in the eye and tell me that this is not the spinning image of a flying saucer. I mean, come on. Now, here is where it gets crazy. After the dust from the initial sighting settled, the Roswell Air Force released a statement admitting that they had found a flying disc, but then quickly retracted that statement, saying instead it was simply a conventional weather balloon, and have stuck to this story ever since. But this change in description caused many to believe the government was covering up valuable information. Then, in 1979, Lieutenant Jesse Marcel, a key figure in the whole debacle, was interviewed for a documentary about the incident and admitted that despite what they told newspapers in 1947, that he truly believed it was an extraterrestrial entity that was found that day, and that the government had ordered him to keep quiet. Now, that isn't suspicious at all. So what do you guys think? Government weather balloon or top secret alien spaceship?